Hello and welcome to another vlog with your host Damon Standing. It's another comics vlog. It's actually the third take of this one because the first take I kind of screwed up, and the second take I just went on for way too long and my camera just filled up. It's just too exciting. So I mean, obviously, if you haven't caught up with Pugley, go to pugleycomics.com and get caught up so you have a little bit more context of what we're talking about. But essentially today we're talking about the comic artists who have inspired my work. So obviously I got really excited talking about this and filled up my camera the first time. So this time I'll try to keep it to the 10-minute mark so that it doesn't cut out in the middle of recording. So the funny thing is, when I started Talisman Rogue, the first comic, I wasn't actually reading comics. I'd read a lot of Simpsons comics and a lot of Ultimate Spider-Man in my childhood. But it'd been quite a long time, and definitely if you're writing comics, read some comics. It'll make your frame leading and your speech bubble leading, much better. So yeah, with Talisman Rogue started, and then this was college, as in like kind of sixth form college. So I would have been 17 at the time, and I had a friend who quite liked his anime and his manga, and so he lent me Devil May Cry, the light novel, and I loved it. So I got a copy, and then I eventually got the Devil May Cry 3 manga. So that was kind of a lesson in like action and dynamics, and then I was also recommended by a friend, Kentaro Yabuki's Black Cat, and my brother bought that for me for my birthday or Christmas, and I got hooked on that. Another dynamic, quite funny but serious at the same time comic. So I guess you could say a lot of my influences around the time that I was starting to draw comics were on the Japanese end of things, and I think partially that was very helpful because I was doing stuff in black and white. The reason being color printing, expensive, and I kind of had an idea of what I wanted my comic to look like. It wasn't exactly manga, but it was kind of a weird point of contention actually, because I get people who say, "Oh, you should draw manga." It's like, why don't you draw Western comics? And then whenever you go to someone who actually likes manga, it's like it's cool, but I wish it was manga, and it's like can't win. But yeah, sorry, I went off on one a little bit there, but so yeah, so the first influences I had really in terms of action and comics was Kentaro Yabuki's Black Cat and the Devil May Cry 3 manga. Then Ghost in the Shell came onto the scene, which I absolutely love. Shiro Masamune's art style. I can't get to it, but that was a game changer. Seeing something so serious, so complex, written, but the malleability of the faces, it was just crazy. I remember reading a review of Ghost in the Shell 1 before I went and bought it, and someone said, it's good, but some of the faces are just butts. Not literally, but they're like kind of so contorted you could barely make out which characters they were. And yeah, I loved it. I loved how you could go from serious to not serious. You could really change the mood, and that had a huge impact on me. Then later with the setting, you probably won't, you can't tell because the art style changed completely. It was heavily inspired by the manga of FLCL, as in Gainax Fulukuli. And originally the setting was meant to be drawn in 40 days, 10 pages a day, in kind of a very rough style, but I ended up scrapping that idea because I really liked how I did some rough style stuff, and then I just started doing some character sketches, but they ended up evolving into something completely different that would take way too long to do in such a short period of time. but yeah, I really liked the surrealness of that. And of course, when it came to Jefferson Pugley, I'd been reading One Piece for a while. It must have been a while at that point, but maybe not. Maybe I'd only really just started reading One Piece, but there's you definitely see, like I've mentioned it before, with like kind of the eyes, the intense eyes in One Piece whenever something's like serious. That just went straight into Pugley, and um, then by that time I'd realised that I could cut down on all the hatching and stuff, and really get like quite a basic style with Pugley that's very stripped back to black and white, and still have all that dynamic conveyed, maybe even better than when it was with the fully hatched style, and because that was basically the fully hatched style of Tarsman Rogue, and the setting was basically an antidote to color, so to speak. Um, but it didn't really need it to be successful, and that's, I suppose, that I'm glad I took the risk with Pugley, making it very black and white. After reading all that manga for years, and yeah, so One Piece had a huge impact on that. So I mean, that's only art style wise, but in terms of story, um, you have things like Death Note, where you've got a lot of complex weaving lines of story going into each other, which I found like just mind blowing. It wasn't your basic shonen manga with character arc fight. Not that I have anything against that. It's just it was you were more. It felt like I was more along for the ride, and I did read like the first half of Naruto where it still has the white covers. But sometimes it does begin to drag. And it particularly did at the end of Black Cat, which is it's a shame because it's such a good manga. It just starts to drag on a little bit at the end in terms of just fight scenes. In One Piece, I never really found that to be too much of a problem because I just buy the volumes once every 4 months or whenever they come out, and it doesn't feel like anything. Enough happens in each volume for me to be satisfied. It never feels like it's dragged, and that's why I'm not tired of One Piece. I love it. I still get it. And Ghost in the Shell, in terms of the story, was very episodic, but still linked together. And I quite liked that within a couple of chapters, you could have like a little story in a similar way to Pugley. Not context wise, but in a similar way, you could have this little story that was set in this little universe, and it was like kind of tied together by the end of like the second part of a chapter, which was really nice. And then there's another. I'm running out of time. I might have to make two of these, one for one side of the argument and one for the other side, the Western side and the movie side. So okay, let's tie this up with the last of the manga part of the inspiration. So we've got it's just something I haven't read, but my brother had, and he showed me some pages from. But the Higurashi no Nakakuru ni Higurashi no Nakukoro ni, yeah, from bad pronunciations. When they cry, frame leading. There's a bit at the end of one of the arcs where there's loads of double page spreads, and you have to turn each time, and only because it's a whole double page spread as a frame, it slows the pace down so much, and it makes it terrifyingly tense. And yeah, I wanted that in Pugley. I wanted to be able to have the page turnover, and that part of the planning part of Pugley is really making it so that the page turn happens on the twist. That was a big influence. I think I've actually run out of time, but yeah, highly recommend Ghost in the Shell, Kentaro Yabuki's Black Cat, Gainax FLCL manga, Devil May Cry 3, even though it never got finished. Death Note. But yeah, those are the big, I guess, Eastern influences on my work. I'll make another video with the Western influences. I could talk about this for ages. I love them so much. Yeah, I'll see you in another part.